Salofalava, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susana Suisuiki. Coming up.
Probably he set back, weighed up all of the stresses that he's had in the last few years.
Tonga will elect its new Prime Minister by Christmas Eve. Also, 300 people take to the streets in Fiji to protest human rights. And
this film is very culturally specific to the Pacific, absolutely. But I would say the ideas at the core of the film, to me, are so universal.
Disney's Pacific hero returns to the big screen. Tonga's Prime Minister has resigned ahead of a vote of no confidence that was expected to be tabled in Parliament on Monday. Huakavemeliku Siasi Sovaleni led the kingdom through challenging times, including a volcanic eruption and tsunami. His tenure has also been marked by a difficult relationship with the king. Caleb Fotheringham has more.
Tonga's Prime Minister Huakavemeliku Siasi was about to face a vote of no confidence after defeating a previous one in September last year. Instead, he opted to resign, telling RNZ Pacific it's now best for someone else to lead the country.
You don't know what the number is going to be until the voting, but instead of going to and from, I think it's better for everybody that just leave and they come up with someone else to actually lead the country.
Tonga's King and Prime Minister have not always seen eye to eye. The King earlier in the year expressed dissatisfaction with the Minister of Defence, who was the Prime Minister at the time, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs. It led to the Prime Minister and Foreign Minister dropping the portfolios. Huakavemeliku did not elaborate when asked if the King supported the planned vote of no confidence.
Were there more than rumours, though? Did you receive a letter or any sort of indication?
I'm not going to comment on that. We answered the queries on the motion, and I just want to let it be.
RNZ's Tonga correspondent says he thinks part of the reason the Prime Minister resigned is because he lost support from the Noble MPs. The country's 26-member parliament is made up of 17 representatives voted in by the public, and 9 are elected by Tonga's nobles from among their 33 families. Kalafi Moana says the nobles normally reflect the wishes of the king.
There's wide speculations that what the nobles were doing were basically indicative of that they were supporting what they felt or what they thought was the king's wishes. That's a speculation, of course. But definitely one of the key things that I believe that moved the Prime Minister to resign was that he felt he no longer had the support of the noble group.
He says there were indications that he was going to step down.
Even at the Tonga National University graduation last week, he basically said that this was the last time he would act as a Minister of Education, as a Pro-Chancellor for the university.
Tongan academic Sione Tikitiki says it would have been a tough decision for the Prime Minister to make. He says he had a choice to either resign or go through the parliamentary process.
Probably he set back, weighed up all of the stresses that he's had in the last few years, including, I guess, the vote of no confidence. And I guess from his point of view, it was probably best for someone else to take the mantle.
Mr. Tikitiki says his time in leadership would have taken a toll, dealing with several emergencies, including COVID-19 and the 2022 eruption and tsunami.
He's had numerous challenges to navigate, whether it's the aftermath of COVID, obviously the Hunga Tonga, Hunga Hapai eruption, including taking leadership with what has transpired in the Pacific Islands Forum this year.
Auckland-based Tongan community leader Pakilau Manasi Lua says the Prime Minister is a good man and he felt sad for him.
He tried his best, but Tonga is going through some real tough things at the moment. Clearly there's a bit of upheaval there, so hopefully things will calm down and that cooler heads will prevail and that Tonga will get back on its feet.
Since the announcement, 3 Noble MPs have also resigned. Parliamentarians in Tonga will meet on Christmas Eve to elect the kingdom's new Prime Minister. Huakavemeliku will remain a member of Parliament for around 10 months until next year's general election.
Parliamentarians in Tonga will meet on Christmas Eve to elect the kingdom's new Prime Minister. The Speaker of the House, Lord Whakawhanua, confirmed this on Monday. He says Huakavemeliku's resignation in the face of a second motion of no confidence was unprecedented, but he says the Constitution is clear on what happens now. Lord Whakawhanua told Koroi Hawkins Monday was an historic day for the kingdom for a number of reasons.
Not just because we were expecting to table the second vote of no confidence against Honourable Huakawalet Liku as the Prime Minister of Tonga, but we also heard from the Prime Minister and received his resignation. That resignation under our Constitution is complete upon His Majesty being notified, and this happened during the lunchtime, and we read a letter from the Palace Office acknowledging the Prime Minister's resignation when the House resumed at 2 o'clock. So the vote of no confidence was never read. It didn't go through. However, in the public interest, I determined that these documents, both the vote of no confidence and the evidence that was lodged against the Prime Minister for the vote of no confidence and the Prime Minister's response to the vote of no confidence, was determined to be a public document so that everyone gets to see who signed the votes of no confidence, the 10 signatures, alongside the supporting evidence and documentation associated with that vote. So a lot of things happened, including the resignation of Huakawalet Liku as Prime Minister. He does still retain his ministerial portfolios, which is police and education, but he is no longer Prime Minister, and it was clarified that the Deputy Prime Minister is acting as the Prime Minister moving forward while we wait for nominations to come in over the next 14 days for the election of the new Prime Minister scheduled for the 24th of December.
Just walk us through that process up until the 24th of December, what it says in the Constitution, please, and thank you.
So the Constitution requires that upon a vacancy of the Prime Minister, that we invite nominations from the members of Parliament. These nominations will be received over the next 14 days. And at the expiry of the 14 days, we are to meet and elect a Prime Minister within 3 days. That brings us to the 23rd, 24th, and 25th of December. Given that Christmas Day and Boxing Day are holidays, it leaves us the 24th to meet for this important motion, which is to elect the Prime Minister in a secret ballot.
Turning to the process for the election of the Prime Minister, what form does the vote take and how does that process held?
So the nominations are submitted into a sealed box. That box is opened on the day of the ballot, and the valid nominations are read. The House will be given an opportunity to speak and debate over their preferred nominee, and then there will be a secret ballot where a simple majority of the House is required for any one of the nominations, if there is more than one, to succeed as the preferred Prime Minister elected by Parliament. So it is done over a secret ballot, and a simple majority of the 26 members is required, which is 14. What is still undetermined is, as Speaker of Parliament, ordinarily I do not vote unless it is required in a draw or a tie. But given that this is a secret ballot as an elected member, I may be given the opportunity to participate in the election of the Prime Minister in the secret ballot.
And that's also, you mentioned some uncertainty over that. Is that because it's not clear in the Constitution?
Everything that has occurred today leading up to December 24th is unprecedented. And when the schedule applies after a general election, the House is presided by an interim speaker. However, given that we've had our general elections for 3 years now and a speaker is presiding, an interim speaker will not be appointed by His Majesty. The speaker will resume the role of the interim speaker. And so there is some question as to whether the speaker, as an elected member, will have his right to participate in a secret ballot for an election of a Prime Minister or not. This is something that we're now looking into.
So, in the case, the scenario after an election, the interim speaker is not an elected MP or noble. Is that right?
No. In that case, the threshold for a simple majority is 14 members. At present, because the Speaker is residing and is removed from the 26 that is in the House, the simple majority is 13. So the inclusion or exclusion of the Speaker would determine the threshold for a successful vote, and that is between 13 and 14 in favor of one candidate.
And should there be a draw between multiple candidates? Is there a round of elimination? Lowest polling numbers drop off and you eliminate people that way in the case of multiple candidates? Or how does that work?
That is correct. There is a simple elimination.
Did you want to say anything to the people of Tonga in terms of the diaspora that might be listening in on our recording of our interview?
Koroi, thank you very much for this opportunity to talk to you about the events of today. I think it's important that we acknowledge that the Constitution is guiding the due process that Parliament is going through. And despite the disruption to our government and our Parliament, democracy in Tonga is still active. And as long as we are all working within the Constitution and our laws, everything is fine, and there is a continuity in terms of our government and our representation in Parliament. So this is all part of the democratic process, and people shouldn't be afraid. We have clear guidelines set out by the Constitution that we are following, and I believe people should just trust the system, and hopefully by the 24th of December, we will know the results of the election for our new Prime Minister.
December 10th marks World Human Rights Day, and Fiji's NGO Coalition for Human Rights were granted a permit to hold a march this week. The march brought together over 300 participants who marched through Suva to advocate for a range of issues, including violence against women, decolonization, LGBTQ+ rights, and Palestinian liberation. Coco Lan spoke with activist Shamima Ali.
Today is World Human Rights Day, and this is an annual event that we have marked for over 3 decades now, and it starts with the 16 days of activism against violence against women on 25th of November, and the Human Rights March is today because 10th of December is World Human Rights Day. And on this day we march, the NGO Coalition for Human Rights in Fiji. We are leading this march, organizing it, and it's basically to talk about human rights, to encourage the government to adhere to human rights issues, to talk about the violations we see happening, to talk about violence against women, the impunity, and to end the impunity. And other people are talking about decolonization, particularly with the Kanaki and West Papua in mind. So there are various groups that are meeting, even National Rugby League, NRL will be marching, talking about how they are tackling violence against women within NRL and so on. So, various groups, people with disabilities, and so on, women's rights groups, other women's rights groups are marching through town, demanding human rights, wanting improvements in what is already happening. But also we have a rally and an exhibition at a particular place where we end up at the bowling club in Fiji, in Suva. And there are various displays and booths, information booths, and so on, where people can hold discussions and get information on various aspects of human rights.
Why do you think that these type of gatherings are so important for the people participating in just society in general?
It's really important that we make people aware that there is a human rights community, there are human rights activists in this country, and that we need to protect human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. And they're all men, women, young people. A lot of young people are marching also for climate change and so on. So, there's quite a good diverse group of people who are marching today.
I did see that part of the permit conditions was a rule that, no banners or slogans regarding, I think it was Palestine, Israel, Kanak, West Papua issues shall be included in the gathering. And then simultaneously, the march permit said that only is the issues able to concentrate on International Human Rights Day.
It is.
Yeah,
There's
so
a bit of a contradiction.
Yeah, so I guess it conflicts. There's quite a confliction there. Have you kind of had any pushback towards those kind of permit conditions that were put in place?
The police just don't understand what universal human rights was and what international human rights mean. So they said you should concentrate only on Fiji on this because it's International Human Rights Day. So we just took them at their word. They only said no banners. So there are people who are marching with Palestinian T-shirts, with Kanaki T-shirts, with West Papuan T-shirts, and other rights T-shirts. So, so we're keeping them to their word. So it's always negotiations. We've got lawyers in the crowd who are keeping them on track as far as the permit is concerned. And sometimes the police officers don't know. They were taking people out individually in the crowd and asking them to take off their T-shirts if it said Kanaki or West Papua or Palestine. And then we intervened, our staff intervened and said, no, you can't do that. There's only banners that are not allowed, even though it is human rights. This is why it's so important for us to push the boundaries and to march on days like this.
The director behind Moana 2, Dana Miller, is a proud Samoan and hopes to have more Pacific representation in the industry. The animated Disney film topped the box office in its second weekend, earning $52 million, according to studio estimates. Its domestic total now stands at $300 million, surpassing the original, while global earnings reached $600 million. Dana Miller spoke with Grace Fevereye.
I come from a little bit all over, so I'm Dana Ledoux Miller. I grew up in Long Beach, out here in California, where there's a lot of Samoans, so it makes sense. But my dad was born in Apia, but my grandma's from Tonga and Savaii, and my grandfather's from Pango Pango. So yeah.
Dana, as the director, you understand the movie more than anyone, and there have been a lot of reviews. What are your thoughts, or what comes to mind for you as you think of, some themes from the movie?
This film is very culturally specific to the Pacific, absolutely. But I would say the ideas at the core of the film, to me, are so universal. And, this is really a film about a young woman she was 16 in the first film. And she was like, by the end of that, she's like, I know exactly who I am. And to me, it's so relatable that by 19, 3 years later, she would have to learn that even when you think you know who you are, you still have so much more to learn about yourself. That's what growing up means. This idea of self-evolution, and that as new obstacles enter our world, or as our world expands, our understanding of who we are grows and expands. That's part of growing up. The fact that it takes place in this very specific place that is from where my family comes from where the Pacific, it doesn't change the fact that the film is meant for everyone.
Now, how important is it to you to have cultural representation in the film industry?
As creatives, we are 100% capable of telling our own stories at a high level, but we also, just like anyone else, are worthy and capable of telling all kinds of stories that don't have to just speak specifically to culture. We contain multitudes just like anybody else. I think when you see yourself, or you see someone like you in a position, it helps you understand what you're capable of. Culturally, I understand it's important. Humility is a very large part, I think, of what it means to be a member of a village and a community in the Pacific. And I think that it is an admirable quality, and it's sort of fundamental to who we are. For those people who are striving to make it in entertainment, I think that there is this natural instinct to not want to take up too much space and to make yourself small, because that is sort of, we're taught to be humble, but no one will make space for you in this business unless you take up space for yourself. And I think finding that balance of being willing to put yourself out there and take ownership of what you want and who you want to be doesn't mean that you're giving up this part of yourself. Like, you can still have humility. It's not easy to work in film and television, and nobody is going to make space for you if you don't make it for yourself.
Such wise words, Dana. If you had to pick a character in the film, who would you be and why?
I am pretty goofy, I would say. I'm a little awkward. This story in particular in Moana 2 means a lot to me because, in talking about representation like we are, it has become a driving force in my life to want to improve representation of our people and make it possible for more of us to have opportunities to do this job. And so I love the idea that Moana is striving to give her people the whole ocean in this film. I think I would love to expand the ocean here in entertainment for our people, and anything I can do to help make that possible feels like I'm on the right path.
That's Pacific Waves for today. For all episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, tō whā soifua.